Hello and welcome to the third part in the PHP Object Oriented Programming tutorials. Today we're going to look at visibility scopes. This is something that I've been banging on about in the last couple of videos, where I've been saying I'll talk about this later on. Well, today is the day. This tutorial we're going to focus on visibility scopes. Now there are three visibility scopes. There's public, private and protected. Now these visibility scopes can go on the methods as well as the properties. So where you see here public, 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 all of these things, these are visibility scopes. So we have a public job title in this employee class, a public constructor and a public get job title. And likewise, if we went down to the person class, these are all public and these are all public too. Now I talked about class inheritance in the second tutorial, in the previous tutorial. Do check that out if you haven't done so already, as well as the first tutorial where I talked about classes and objects in general. I'll leave a link to in the description below for both of those, as well as in the annotation bit up here, in the card bit up here in the top right hand corner. Okay, so let's talk about these scopes then. So let's just comment these just to talk about them. So public, private and protected. Now what do these do? Well, the public one, as you can probably guess, allows public access to these properties and these variables. So for example, let's scroll all the way down here where we're doing Jane, the instance of the employee class get job title. We don't actually need to do that, because if I was to just jump to that function, it's returning the job title, and the job title itself is public, so we don't actually need to do call the get job title in order to return the property, because we can access the property directly. I'll just demonstrate that now. Let's scroll to the bottom again. Instead of calling get job title, we are literally going to do Jane job title, and we're going to save that out. I'm just going to comment this just so we can focus on this bit for now. And let's run that example. So now we've actually returned the backend developer, which is exactly what the get job title method was doing. But because the property is public, which is public here, it means that we can just access it directly. Not only can we access it directly, but we can also alter it. We can change the value of this property outside of the scope of this class. So let's scroll to the bottom again. Let's do Jane job title, and we're going to equal that to front end developer and save that. Now this is actually going to change from, because what we're doing here is we've got Jane is a new instance of employee. We're passing in the backend developer as the first argument, which is the job title. I best just explain that just in case you haven't seen the other tutorials. So in the constructor here we have job title, and we are setting the job title to be the job title, the first argument here. Okay, so when we instantiate this class and we pass in the first argument being job title, we're saving that to be job title like that. So let's just scroll down to the bottom. So what we're doing here is we're actually on line 47, we're actually we're altering the value of job title to something else. So in this case, front end developer, and therefore on line 48 where we're echoing out Jane job title, this will actually change from back end developer to front end developer. Let's just save that down and run this. Oops. So there we go. So we've actually changed it. We've actually altered the value of this property within this class outside of the scope of the class. So on line 47, we are changing it from back-end developer to front-end developer, like so. So that's the public scope. Public basically means that you can access these properties and these methods from outside of the scope of the class, or you know, from outside the scope of the class, and we can also alter the values of the property as well. Now the polar opposite of public is private. which is this one here. So let's just change that to be private, like so, and save that. Scroll to the bottom, and this is going to throw us an error because it's no longer public, it's now private. Let's just clear this down and run the file, and the error that we get is this here. It's a fatal error. It cannot access the private property employee job title. So as you've probably guessed, private properties are encapsulated within the object, within the class itself. So we cannot access job title from outside of the employee class. Job title must only be accessed from within the class. So for example, in this constructor here, we're setting job title as the first argument, and then we're accessing job title from within the scope of the employee class, and we're setting it to the variable. Okay, so let's scroll down here and let's remove this setting. And the way we would change, actually, let's talk about that. Yeah. So the way we would actually change the value front-end developer from outside of the scope of the class is we would use what's called Accessor Methods. Now these are broken up into two different methods. So we have a getter and we have a setter. So let's just build those in now. So we have public function, set job title. Save that, and we're going to pass in the value of job title, and we are going to set this job title is equal to job title and save that. Now if we because this is public, it means that we can access this method from within the employee class, and that is accessing the job title property. Even though it's private, it's accessing it from within this class, and therefore this can happen, this can work. We're setting that to job title. So let's scroll to the bottom, and instead of accessing the property directly, we're now going to call set job title, and we're going to pass this in as the first argument. So let's just copy that and save this. Okay, I'm going to run this again and it's still going to throw an error. I'll explain why in a minute. Let's just clear that down and run this again. And the error again is it cannot access the private property employee job title, but this time it's on line 52, and that's because we're still trying to access it from outside of the scope of this class. So echo Jane job title. So what we need to do here is use the second accessor method. In this case it would be a getter. So let's scroll to the top. I think we already have one. So yes, so here we're doing a public function get job title, and we're returning the job title. So we can actually do that now. So let's bring those back to life, and then do, instead of say hello, we're doing get job title. Oops, I best remove that. There we go, and there's no need for that too. So let's save that, clear the screen, and then run this. So now we can actually see that we've got front-end developer. So we've changed it, we've altered it using a public accessor method, which is a setter. So we've set the job title, passing in this value which it gets set to, and then we're echoing out the getter accessor method. So get excuse me, get job title. Excuse me. Now, why would you want to do this? What's the whole point in having getters and setters and so forth, and exposing properties in this manner? Well, we might want to force logic to go through setters if, for example, we want to enforce some sort of formatting rules, and therefore prevent these values from being changed from outside of the scope of the class unless they go through these setters, which then enforce the formatting rules. So let's just go back into this method here. We might want to, for example, make sure that we have uppercase the first letter within the job title. And let's just run that, save that, and then change that to be a lowercase f, for example. Let's save, and then let's run this. So even though we're trying to set it with a lowercase front end, we've actually uppercased it here, and that's being enforced within this set job title method, like so. And just for completeness, what we can do here is we can also do this set job title, passing in the job title like so, and therefore anything that gets added to the constructor will also be uppercased. And let's just demonstrate that now. So let's just comment out this setter, and let's just change that to be a lowercase b, save that, and run this. Whoops, and there we go. We've got a uppercase B for backend developer, even though we've put in a lowercase like so. Okay, so that's private properties. We can also have private methods. So we could have this as private. So keep that private. That means that we can only access this this method from within this class. And let's scroll to the bottom here. Now we're trying to access this method from outside of the scope of this class. So we're going to save that, and we're going to just clear this. We will now get an error. And the error is that we can't call a private method get job title from the context of nothing. Basically, this means from the context of outside of the scope of these classes. Now, why would you want to do this? Well, let's just scroll up and change that to public again, because the employee class extends the person class. Now this is extension and inheritance is something that I touched on in the previous tutorial, so do check that out if you haven't done so already. But it basically means that we are ensuring that these methods can only be accessed from the scope of this class. Now, if we were to extend it, so for example here we're extending employee to person, we can, for example, limit the scope. So let's say we set that to private and save that. We now no longer have access to this say hello method from the employee. So let's try and do that. So let's change that to be say hello and save that. Let's just ensure that that is correct. So we are trying to run say hello from the person class that we are inheriting. So employee class extends person. So we have access to these public methods, but we don't have access to this private method. So let's just run that, and we should have an error, which we do here. So error, fatal error, call to private method person say hello from context blank. However, if we were to change that to public, for example, and then clear the screen like so, and then run that, we now have access to this method. So hello, my name is Jane Fisher, and so forth. So by having public methods and private properties and private methods and so forth, we can actually create some rules in our architecture of our objects to ensure that the scope is correct for when we need it and for when we don't need it. For example, we wouldn't want to have everything just publicly accessible and changeable from outside of the class. We might want to ensure that these variables get set, these properties get set using some sort of formatting to perhaps clean the variables. Maybe there are user inputs and so forth, and we need to sanitize them. Therefore, they need to go through some functions, some mechanisms to clean the variables out, to trim them down, to ensure that they don't have any SQL injection or anything like that, and so forth. And therefore we can encapsulate, we can isolate the logic into these objects, which is great for designing the architecture of the objects and the classes. Now, the third one that we haven't yet focused on is protected. Now, this is kind of a mishmash between public and private, in the sense that it's protected, and therefore we have access from the inheritance point of view, but we don't have access from outside of the scope of the class. Let me just demonstrate that now. So let's say we change this to be protected, for example, right? So first name is protected. Let's just save that. Let's run this, go through here and do Jane. So we have access to the last name. If you can see in the IDE here, we have last name, and we also have gender, but we no longer have first name. I'm just going to try and access that first name, and let's echo that out. So echo first name, and let's just comment you. We don't, or remove that. We don't need that at the moment, and save that. Clear this down and run the file. The error we have here is, again, we cannot access a protected property employee first name. However, we can access this from the inheriting class. So we can do, for example, we can do this first name. We can actually access the first name from the employee class, but we can't access it from outside of the scope of the classes, so from here, for example, and therefore we're ensuring that this first name property can only be accessed from this person class and any class that it inherits, whereas private was basically saying that it can't, like this property, a private property, cannot be accessed from any inheriting classes. Let's just demonstrate that now. So let's just change that back to private and scroll up. My IDE no longer gives me access to this first name. It's only last name, job title and gender, whereas if I was to remove that, change that to be protected and save that, scroll up, my IDE should now offer me access to the first name, you see. And so likewise, what we want to do here is perhaps have a public method, public function, and we're going to have let's just put the say hello method within here. So let's just remove say hello from the U, or just copy that and put that into here. So now the employee can say hello. Hello, my name is first name, last name, and also let's just do a new line, and also forgive me, I'm thinking as I'm speaking. So let's just put in message. Message is equal to hello, my name is first name, last name, and also concat that to be message, my job title is, and this job title, like so. Let's just return the message. Okay, so at the moment, job title is set to private, and we are accessing it from this class, so that's fine. First name and last name are we're going to just set that to both be public, like so. So we should have access to all of these variables, and let's scroll down to the bottom, and let's do echo Jane say hello, and we're just going to double check that. Yep, that is correct. Good. And let's just clear this down and run that again. So now we've got hello, my name is Jane Fisher, my job title is backend developer. Let's just remove that blank space like that, just to give us a little bit more formatting. Now if I was to change this to be private, we'll get an error because we can't access the first name from here. So let's just clear this, run that again, and we can see that we have an error. So instead of, so we got hello, my name is, and then we can't, nothing there, Fisher. And this is actually a notice, undefined property first name, employee first name. And that's because we can't have access to this here. If I was to change that back to public and save that, clear this down, that will work like so. Now, if I was to change that to protected and save that, it will also work. Let's just clear that down and then do that. So now we have hello, my name is Jane Fisher. We've changed that to be protected, the first name. But what we don't have access to is the first name from outside of the scope of this class. Let's just change that to be Jane first name. Oops, if I can spell it, first name, like so. If I was to clear that down, run that, we now get this cannot access protected property. Even though we can have access to this protected property from inside the employee class, we don't have access to it from outside these classes, these person and these employee classes either. Okay, so that's private, protected, and public methods and properties in the visibility scope. If you've got any questions, then please let me know. Put them in the comment section below. If you found this video helpful, then give it a thumbs up, give it a like, and share it around if you think others might find this useful too. Please subscribe to pick up the next tutorials. I'm doing some more PHP tutorials, as well as web chats every Friday. So these are talks about web development every Friday, so do check those out. Thanks again for watching. Follow me on Twitter. Twitter handle is @PFWD. I shall see you again next week. Thank you. Bye.